Hello and welcome to the Healthy Vibrant Kids Summit. Today I have Dr. Sarah Lobisco, and I'm really excited about her interview because she's talking about essential oils for kids, which is really how I got started. So I am so thrilled to have you, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I love what you're doing. You are providing so much value, and we really need these resources for kids. So I was honored to be
Thank
here. Thank you.
I really am excited. I didn't have anyone specifically coming on to talk about essential oils, and I loved that you're not necessarily a pediatric specialist in your practice, but you use essential oils, and so I wanted to pick your brain, and I appreciate you being willing to hop on.
Thank you so much. They're my little aromatic friends. I love essential oil.
Yes, I put on all my brain thinking oils right before we
Yeah,
started. So
my diffuser go in my oils. Yep, perfect.
Dr. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about why you are so passionate about essential oils and how you came to incorporate them into your practice? Just a little bit about you.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I actually started off pretty much in conventional medicine. I was um, aiming to be a physician assistant. And what ended up happening is there were twists and turns. I had severe back pain since I was 16. And I ended up going into nursing school for a while I was waiting to get into PA school. And I injured my back pretty bad, severely, where I had to have emergency surgery. And up to that point, from 16 to like my 20s, I had been taking Advil, ibuprofen, like literally I carried around the bottle. And this is really bad now that I know you shouldn't do this. I was literally taking them like candy, like just to get through the day. I was in so much pain and no one could figure out why my back like hurt so much because I was so young. Finally, when I couldn't stand, like literally, and I had emergency surgery, they found out that, basically the nerve was pressing on the bladder and I could have lost bladder control as well as the use of my legs if they didn't operate immediately. So that was not a fun Christmas, needless to say, for my family, especially my poor mom. But the surgery was successful. And what ended up happening is around that same time, while I was studying to kind of go more into medicine, my mom was going through menopause and she was not happy with some of the symptoms and she got introduced to essential oils. And my part-time job at the time was as a pharmacy technician. And I was like, these are not FDA approved. You are going to kill yourself, Mom. What are you doing? You're crazy. And what ended up happening is she knew me. She got this big desk reference she's like, Sarah, there's science here. Can you just look at this? Just look at this. Just consider it because they're really helping me. Meanwhile, she's having like these these essential oil gatherings and everyone's talking about how wonderful they are. And I'm sitting there going, okay, like this is like everybody's like coming from the dead here. Like what's going on? And then I read the referenced articles. I started looking on PubMed. I started seeing the science. I started looking at the biochemistry. I was like, oh, there's something to this. And she gave me a couple of blends in peppermint. And I was kind of annoyed at the name of the blend because it was like an emotional blend. I'm like, this is cheesy, whatever. So, but I used them and I did not need my ibuprofen. Like I was amazed. I was applying them, but it actually really helped. And it really helped with, I was pretty depressed at that time because, my best laid plans were not going the way I wanted. And I just instantaneously, I guess many people, probably you, Sarah, know this too, that when you smell an essential oil, there's an instantaneous shift, right, in your mindset and in your mood. That impressed me. And then when I started to feel better and I just started like listening to my mom, she's like, apply these, da da da. What ended up happening is, long story, only an epic, I realized that they do work and I got super interested in natural health. I ended up derailing my plans again, working for a holistic chiropractor, really studying essential oils, and decided I wanted to go to naturopathic medical school because I wanted to learn how to use them medicinally with clients and learn how they worked. And so that's actually why I went to naturopathic medicine school. I wanted to learn more about essential oils and how they worked and how we could incorporate them and bridge the gap between conventional medicine and natural medicine.
That's so beautiful. I love stories like that, and that's why I always ask,
Yeah.
the origin story of where your journey began. That's so beautiful. So kind of with that, tying into your story there, let's just talk a little bit about foundationally what essential oils are and what do they do and why do they matter for children's health? Why are they a great tool to help with our children?
So the essential oils they're not fatty acids or fatty oils. They're actually the volatile components of the plant. So that means that they actually go into the air and they evaporate, right? They're the aromatic parts of different plants. It can come from the flowers, the seeds, the peels, the branches. Citrus oils they can be distilled, but they're usually pressed from the rind. They are the aromatic component, that volatile component of the plant, and they're called secondary metabolites. So what that means is the plant produces these essential oils in order to help it survive, to live better, right? It's kind of like the immune system of the plant. And because of that, these secondary metabolites that they produce are vast in their function, and there's a lot in just an essential oil. If you have an essential oil from, say, a lavender plant or from a mint like peppermint, what's happening there is you're getting this whole array of this plant's kind of like immune system with all of these different biochemical compounds that interact with us in our cellular structures in a way that's very balancing. If you look at they have a biochemical aspect, they have a psychological aspect, they have an aromatic aspect, which we can go into. But basically, they're just these complex mixtures of hundreds of different of compounds, and they can contain various aromatic compounds. I can get really geeky, but I'll stop there and see if you want which way you want to take me on this.
Sure. So with that, why are they beneficial to our health and what aspects of health do they help?
I specialize mostly in mental health as well as gut health and women's health. So I love them for that reason. But because there's so many different compounds in an essential oil that do so many different things, like one molecule in essential oil could have many different effects, and there's hundreds of different compounds in that specific drop of essential oil. So it's kind of like, what can't they do, right? It's kind of, and so people hear like, oh, use lemon because you can use it to clean your counter, and at the same time it contains limonene, which is great for cellular structure and digestion and helps helps your immune system. And it's almost like, like those cheesy commercials with an essential oil with all of the different actions they can have. But if you look at the biochemistry, it's like, yeah, most of them can do a lot of things. There's some exceptions, like wintergreen contains a really high percentage of, like, say, methyl salicylate. That's like 90%. So it's, in that specific essential oil, that's really good for discomfort, for pain. That's more of a concentrated, say, essential oil. But like lavender might have, depending on how it's distilled, 100, 300 different compounds in it. But each essential oil will have a specific kind of percentage or standard that it lives up to so for example, like lavender will have high amounts of compounds that are calming. So stress is a big factor in our world today. Like, the more you hear about stress, the more everything is blamed on stress. And we know in the literature, one of the most researched aspects of aromatherapy that everybody agrees on is that when you inhale an essential oil, you can relax, right?
Yeah.
So if you stop that stress cascade at the level of perception, which is literally before it starts, right? When you inhale it, you can really balance a lot in the body. And then at the same time, they can impact immune function. They can help our microbiome, which is a big buzzword. And yes, they are antimicrobial, but they do not wipe out the bad bacteria, by the way. They can help with our brain health, right? So essential oils are lipid soluble. And they have the ability, because of the polarity of the molecules, to enter into the membranes, our mucous membranes, to cross the blood-brain barrier. They're very tiny structures. They can help with hormone balancing. They're not estrogenic. There's this like big disclaimer that certain essential oils like tea tree and lavender are estrogenic, and that was based on a study with different personal care products that had those fragrances in it, and then a petri dish study. So that's been debunked. I did a whole article on that. So they can help with hormones. They can help with cognition, with focus, right? We both talked about how we used essential oils to help us with our focus and our memory. There's specific compounds and things like rosemary and sage, which actually help that memory enzyme, like that. There's an anti-cholinesterase enzyme that helps with memory, and essential oils can actually help modulate that to help with, like rosemary and sage specifically. They can help with that. For kiddos, they're super gentle, right? We can diffuse them. We can dilute them, apply them topically. If you're really comfortable with essential oils, you can use them internally, but that's got some caveats to it.
Sure.
So what can't they do, Sarah? I don't know.
So good. And the reason why I was so excited to have you come on is because I feel like essential oils are so accessible. Sometimes you can have a little bit of fear with them. There's some, experts that say don't use them with kids at all, especially with babies and all of that. I just feel like they're similar. What you just said, what can't they do? And I feel like they're just such a good step to, if you don't really, this whole natural, world of other modalities to help with your children's health and immunity. I think essential oils are just beautiful for that because they're so easy to use. So with that, I think segueing a little bit as far as wondering if they're safe and effective. And that's, one of those words, but let's talk a little bit about purity. What is purity when it comes to essential oils? And what should we look for when we're purchasing our oils?
Okay. Can I riff a little bit about the safety scares and all of that for a minute? Okay, cool. So most of the toxicity studies, and let me say that, toxicity studies, most of the scares are related to, in the literature, children getting a hold of essential oils and literally drinking them, right? They're taking bottles. So we have the 10 milliliter bottles, we have the 15 milliliter bottles. I did a deep dive into the research about these poisonings and childhood incidents, and it could go from where they're giving an infant 12 drops of an essential oil. I don't even give internally. I don't even give my adults that much essential oil unless it's super acute and we're following them. To the poor little child drinking a bottle of eucalyptus. And from what I've seen so far in the literature, and I just did a quick review before I came on here too, there was a website that had all of the references, and I looked at the studies and I said, wow, don't let your kids drink essential oils. Like, that's not good. And most of them won't die from it, but a couple, might get seizures and then they're fine when they stop. Like, just, stay out of reach of children or use them appropriately. What the writer came to the conclusion is essentials are scary, they'll poison you, and you need to stay away from them. But again, the dose makes the poison, right? And we know for a fact that 50% of children today and moms since the pandemic are into alternative health, and essential oils are one of the number one things they're using. So instead of scaring people, let's actually teach them how to use them effectively, right? And we know from moms who are going to save the world, when moms find something that's good work, they're going to use it for their kids.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that. Now, what is some of the concerns we have? Okay, so yes, you've mentioned safety and purity. So we do know in the United States that essential oils are not regulated. So you really have to do your homework, which means that you can't necessarily just go on a website and trust it. Say, oh, this looks good, this makes me feel happy, and there's a pretty picture. Like, you need to do your research. And I do have some posts on this, but basically, you do want to consider the reputation of the company, right? And are they known? Have they been used for a while? And what are do they have negative claims against them? And I'm not talking about people trying to smear something because they don't fully understand it. I mean, like, is there toxicity? And again, most of the toxicity studies or the side effects are related to people using impure oils, or they're using them improperly. They're slathering like loads of cinnamon on their skin, which is a hot oil, and then like reporting it as this oil is horrible and dangerous. And just no, like, if we use them with common sense, cool. But if you are getting essential oils that are filled with synthetic fillers, like they can even take a synthetic compound from an essential oil and then fill the rest with some of these plasticizers or estrogenic compounds, which is that estrogenic study. Now, everyone, of course, is blaming the lavender and the tea tree when we know for a fact that some of the stuff that's in these other products actually are legitimately estrogenic. It's not the lavender or tea tree. So, okay, see how I can go off. I love this. I'm sorry. So what we want to look for is what is the raw sourcing? We'll start there, right?
Okay.
How do they source their materials? Is the raw materials in an organic, are they grown organically? Is there pristine soil? How do they take care of their plants? And what are their cultivation practices? For me, I care about if they're sustainable. But I also want to give a little riff here too, because a plant, like say you're doing frankincense in Florida, will have a different chemical compound, based on the plant produces these secondary metabolites based on where they are in the environment and what they're up against in the environment. And most of the frankincense that's studied for the compounds they produce are in hotter climates. So it's not necessarily good to buy local with your essential oils. You actually want to figure out where the plants are sourced and what their native places are, and then do they actually keep up with the sustainability from that? How do they distill? So we want to look at the fact that some of these companies can really cut distillation time or not use a proper temperature, or they cannot have the proper specs for the oil when they distill it. So they can get a great smelling essential oil, but it's not necessarily of that quality, of that whole synergy of all of the compounds that make lavender say lavender.
Right.
Do they use verification tests? Right. So you're going to ask them what they are. I have a list of very scientific things, but most people just go for mass spectrometry and gas chromatography. That's not really enough, because all it is saying what that oil was standardized to contain in a constituent. And just because an oil is standardized to that constituent that's found in there doesn't necessarily mean it's pure. Mm-hmm. So that is something that's going around too a lot in the sphere. Well, if you can't get a GCMS for your essential oil, that means it's not pure. Not necessarily, because what it could mean is there's this proprietary blend of the different compounds and the levels that are in there, or just there was other tests they did and they're just not giving it to you. So there's all these nuances, right? In our world of black and white, and it's this way or that way, like nuance is the word of the year. I want it to be. There's nuance to this. So we want to check at the different quality controls and how they're seeing what actually they're identifying the compounds, that's a pure oil, that it's made from the ground, from a plant, and it's not just spiked. So you ask the manufacturer that, and how, to the point of how are they bottled and labeled, right? So you want to make sure that they're in a darker glass bottle so that they don't oxidize. Essential oils don't necessarily expire, but if they're opened, they can get rancid over a long period of time, and they can oxidize. Doesn't make them toxic, but it's kind of like milk isn't necessarily toxic, but if you keep it out from the fridge for a long period of time, it's not going to taste as good and be as good for you. Okay.
Wonderful.
So there's not really a shortcut, except you can ask people that are clinical aromatherapists what brands they use. Mm-hmm. You can ask, people can email me and say, what brands do I use? Because I've vetted my brands. And, just call the manufacturers and ask them that. There are good brands in the US. There's brand wars. I have my particular favorite. I do. Yeah. But I do know that the other ones are good too. So.
Okay. Wonderful. So purity, that is, especially if you're going to be using them internally, that is a big concern. So I think
So,
go ahead.
okay, here we go again. There's so many misconceptions on essential oil. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have been ingesting essential oils since food, right? Because they're used as dietary supplements and flavorings. Okay,
Yes.
so we do not want to take a bottle and ingest them. That's not good.
Yeah.
But if you form a relationship, I like Jade Schutz. She's a famous clinical aromatherapist, and she always talks about the relationship we have with our plants and our bodies, and how we can have this relationship and know how we react with them. And so pure essential oils can be taken safely. I do recommend always diluting them, like never just swallowing them or putting them in water, because it can cause irritation. Some people, the way I was taught, wasn't necessarily the way that's politically correct to say how to use essential oils. I've used them for over 25 years with no problems. I'm a little more heavy-handed, the French model. I'm not, if you go over to France, like they're like pounding essential oils. They're using them medicinally. You're like, what are you doing? Right? In the US and the English model is more like dilute everything. Don't get it too close to your nose. Like just stay like careful. Right. So I'm kind of try to be in between, right?
Right.
There's a cool study coming out. I was watching a presentation. She got married. Her name was Jessie Hawkins, but she's a great researcher in essential oils. She's doing a study, and she's actually with kids and peds studying meat application, which means not diluted,
Mm-hmm.
of lavender essential oil on cuts and scrapes and how that heals. Because she said, let's actually test how people are actually using them, not what people are saying, what they're actually doing, right? So most people, a lot of people are still using essential oils neat, which many people will be aghast about in the professional world because it can cause skin sensitization and it can be too much on the system. But acutely, not for days, but like, for a short period of time, that's actually how essential oils were founded, right? Rene Gusafo, he had a skin burn. He thought it was water. He put his hand in from the burn and it healed. And it was pretty neat. It was an acute burn. So I don't know where we ended up, Sarah.
That's okay. That's
We're
okay.
talking about dosage and purity and safety. I think.
Yes. So just like when we say using internally, I think that's a beautiful example that you mentioned about our relationship with them, because if you've used them for any length of time, and honestly, I didn't go into it and I was like, I'm just going to ingest this oil. It does come with a relationship, and as you build your knowledge and as you get more comfortable with it, then you start, I think, at least for me, it's like, oh, let's explore this a little bit more. And I love that, the relationship that you have with your plants and your oils. So I think that's beautiful. So I think that covered some good tips on the purity and the safety of them. If we're going to use them to support our families, what are some of the first steps that we can take?
Okay. So that being said about safety, if you're new to essential oils, it's probably good to follow dilution ratios, right?
Yes.
So for little kids, there are essential oil dilution charts. They usually recommend like little tiny ones, either just diffusing or I think it's 0.25 to 5%. So what does that look like? We're talking like 3 to 24 months. So 1% would be 6 drops of an essential oil in 1 ounce, or it would be, let's see, I'm so bad at math. 6 drops in 1 ounce, or 1 drop would in 1 teaspoon. That would be 1%. So what you could do is you could take like an ounce bottle or like an empty bottle, that like a 30 milliliter of an empty essential oil bottle, fill it with carrier oil, and then put 6 drops in it. That's 1%. If you wanted to go even lower, like if you wanted to go to 0.25%, you put in like 1 or 2 drops. in all honesty, most people do use more than that on children, but that's a safe place to start, and I would start there. You can always go up, because by the time you get to 15 plus years, you're doing what in literature is mostly studies is a 2.5 to 5%. So there you can do 30 drops in that 30 millimeter or 1 ounce bottle. And you can, that would be 1 tablespoon. So it's quite a lot of,
Yes.
it's, yeah.
And I love that too. And I think that's part of the reason why I loved using them with my kids is because it doesn't take that much. You can have your bottle of lavender and then you just dilute it and it lasts forever. And we use it for the bedtime routine. And it's just wonderful. It's something that she, as she's gotten older, that's her deal when she
Yeah.
does it herself. So dilution, I love that because you can invest in your oil and then you just have it for so long because of the dilution and using it with dilution.
Yeah. And
Um,
it also keeps the smell on longer too. So you get that aromatic benefit.
yes.
And there are some kid oils too that there's a whole kid line in one company I know of that's already pre-diluted
Yes.
essential oils
And
too.
I use those. I use those all the time. And that's kind of how I started using them with her. I would dilute Roman chamomile in her diffuser at night because that's a really
But
calming and sleep
yeah,
oil. And then, I would do the immune, just one swipe on her little feet and rub them together. I wouldn't even, do
yeah,
a swipe on both. It just takes just a
yeah,
little bit to support their little bodies. So
yeah.
perfect. You covered.
That's a shortcut for little tinies is
Yes.
you dilute it on yourself, rub it on your hand. So it's like maybe 1 or less than a drop, and then you rub it on your hand and dilute it, and then just like kind of put it on their feet.
Perfect.
That's another, yeah.
With the dilution, do you have any of the carrier oils that you recommend, or favorites?
I just say use an organic, like fractionated coconut oil is great. I like coconut oil, even olive oil, whatever people have. I say organic because essential oils drive molecules into the body because of their polarity. So sometimes the skin reactions people get is that they're using non-organic or chemical laden skincare products on their skin. Then they're putting an essential oil on there. And the skin reaction is actually the essential oil, like trying to detoxify, I guess. That's not the, true
Yes.
scientific, but just breaking up those, bringing in those estrogen compounds. We don't want that.
Yeah.
So I actually had a couple of instances where I've sometimes clients don't always listen to me. And I told them to dilute it in a pure pure carrier oil. They were like, "Oh, I used my hand cream and I got this rash with my essential oil." I was like, "What did you use with your essential oil?" They're like, "Yeah, I won't name a brand name." I was like, "Let's try it with just, do you have organic olive oil? Let's try it." Oh, they're like, "Oh, okay, it's fine now."
Yeah.
So we have all these different factors that can confound, how we use essential oils. So I would say any organic fatty oil, you get extra benefits from like apricot oil if you want to do that. For like jojoba oil is great for skin. But whatever you have to start with is great.
Perfect. All right, so let's kind of go over some go-to practical. What oils do you recommend for? I think you told me you had 5. What oils are good for kids and why?
Okay, so you already mentioned lavender. So I love lavender. Stress, sleep, it's probably the most studied essential oil. It is the most studied essential oil for anxiety. They actually gone head to head with anxiety medications, and lavender was found to be, quote, non-inferior, which means just as good. So I love lavender, and kids today, unfortunately, are very stressed, and there's a lot of mental health issues in our kids today. So lavender is a go-to for that. For kids that, because essential oils have a smell, we have this what we call memory-based scent association. So some people, I've actually had people not like the smell of lavender because they associate it with something in the past. When they smell it, it brings up that memory. So another one that I like is bergamot for kids because it has very similar calming effects. It has been that Jessie Hawkins I talked about. She studied a scent-based association with bergamot and decreasing behavioral issues in autistic kids. But citrus oils tend to be really good and friendly for children, and they have this limonene component in it, which I mentioned is great for cellular health, immune health. I like it for focus and for it's uplifting and calming at the same time and also doesn't decrease your focus. So I will always diffuse like citrus with another oil. Usually if I'm trying to help my focus, and it's good for kids for that. That's also been studied for calming kids' nerves when they're in dental offices. It can be upsetting. So just simple, those two are some of my favorites. I like tea tree. It's probably, again, one of the most versatile essential oils. It's good for immune health, skincare. It's antimicrobial. You can even take a little bit, and it's good for if older kids get acne. It's been studied for that. It's pretty powerful against skin infections and fungus and all of those icky things. I like fur oils for immune support. There's different companies that have different, what they call thieves essential oil blends. There's different alterations, but they'll usually be like a citrus oil, a spice oil like rosemary. They'll usually be like a clove, cinnamon. Am I missing one, Sarah? Clove, cinnamon, lemon, the citrus,
I think
eucalyptus.
there's oregano in some of them too, isn't there?
Some of them have oregano. Yeah, it's based on this old Four Thieves myth about that the thieves were robbing dead bodies in the bubonic plague and didn't get it because they put these compounds on their hands. But if you look at the synergy of all of those, it's good. That those oils would be something that you wouldn't want to use like necessarily in an infant because it can be a little harsh.
Yeah.
But for older kids, and then for younger ones, you might want to dilute some fir tree oils. Those have what they call phytonosides in them. So phytonosides are when we walk into the forest and we smell the smell of trees. And that's what they study in Japanese forest bathing. If you've heard of that, is when people will go out in the wilderness or in the woods and they decrease their stress. Well, while they're decreasing their stress, it also raises their immune cells, the specifically natural killer cells, which fight off viruses and bacteria. While it decreases their cortisol stress hormone and helps boost their immune system. So I like, if you're inside, especially now in the winter, I'd like to diffuse fir oils for that reason, because I'm bringing the outdoors inside. We're getting those phytonosides, and it's great for kids too. It's calming. I like to combine fir oils with citrus oils. And that's kind of Christmas, like seasonal too.
Yes.
You mentioned chamomile, again, another of my favorite that's great for any form of cramping, even digestive cramping. It's good for pain. It's good for calming, good for sleep. It's got some immune properties, anti-inflammatory properties. Both chamomiles are good. And then peppermint is probably one of the most famous essential oils for digestive issues for kids. Some people say don't use peppermint till you're over 3 years old. That's kind of, again, based on not the greatest of studies, but you could always dilute it and, just distill it, or, just diffuse it or apply it with that 0.5% if they're under 3. Eucalyptus also has another claim. It was based on a case study of a little kid that I think, from what my understanding is, they might have overdosed the eucalyptus too much and it got spasms in their mouth, but in their throat, I'm sorry. But eucalyptus generally is safe for children, and it can be diffused or diluted as well for respiratory issues. I think I gave you more than 5.
That's awesome.
Tea tree, lavender, thieves, fir oils, citrus oils, peppermint, chamomile, eucalyptus, frankincense, and myrrh are always gentle favorites too.
Yes.
And cedarwood too. I'll add cedarwood there because that's great for if the lavender and chamomile aren't working. Cedarwood's one of the highest oils in what we call sesquiterpenes, which are neuroprotective, and they're also really great for helping the brain. They aren't oxygenating the brain, but they're helping bring oxygen to the brain.
Awesome. And also, I was just going to say, a lot of moms who, take the peppermint recommendation 3+, they use spearmint instead. So, and that one even is a little bit, I love spearmint actually. It's like, it's So
Yeah,
good, so good.
yeah. That one's great for hormones too. Actually, I'll add another one of my favorites too for older teenagers going through hormonal shifts. Geranium is a great harmonizing oil. It's been shown to actually modulate estrogen, not like cause a rise in estrogen, but actually help with estrogen. And if you combine that with lavender, which is a calming oil, so it can lower cortisol and increase the progesterone, those are two good essential oils.
Wow. Awesome. So let's wrap this up, Dr. Sarah. Can you give us some practical applications on how we can use essential oils every day? I know you've mentioned diffusing, you have mentioned them topically. Are there any other good application and uses that we can incorporate every day with our kiddos?
I think those are great places to start. The topical application, starting if you're nervous, starting straight away with diffusing, and you don't have to diffuse 24 hours. Like you can do an hour on, an hour off, 20 minutes on, 20 minutes if it's an intermittent setting, because you don't want your nose to be accumulated to it. You won't get the emotional benefits as you would. But they're good air pure. They help neutralize air toxins, and some of them are great for mold spores. So diffusing is a good place to start because you'll get them in your system when you smell. You'll get those compounds in your whole system. Topical, if you want something a little bit more potent. And then if you know what you're doing, there's certain essential oils that kids can ingest. But I would talk to a doctor that knows essential oils. Don't just talk to your doctor. Talk to a doctor that knows essential oils or somebody that's, really well versed. Clinical aromatherapists are totally underrated and their knowledge is probably the most superior. They're basically like herbalists are to herbs. Clinical aromatherapists, they studied all the physiology of the body and they know how essential oils work. So if you can get your hands on a clinical aromatherapist, that's a good thing too.
Good. Gold nugget right there for sure. So, Dr. Sarah, if you could leave moms and parents with a walk away from today's conversation about essential oils, what would it be?
They're going to be some of your health best friends, and don't be scared. Just use them with mindfully, intentionally, and with joy, because they're little friends in a battle, and you don't need to fear. They can be very empowering, right? They're, like you said, Sarah, they're accessible, and just because people don't understand that they're awesome doesn't mean that they aren't, because they are.
So beautiful. Yes, I just with my little kid, and I'll just say this to kind of wrap us up, but I've used essential oils with her since basically she came out of the womb, and
Mhm,
it's so fun to me now. I call her my little oil baby,
mhm,
but she just feels empowered. She knows what
mhm.
essential oil roller balls she can use, and if she's feeling if she's feeling an emotion, or if mommy burns herself on a pot in the kitchen, she's like, "Mom, you need the lavender right away." And I think it's just empowering also for children when you are able to have the knowledge and help them be empowered with their own care and their own emotional support. Bedtime routines, I think that is, especially from using them since she was little, I think that is a way that we connect also. And it deepens a connection, especially at bedtime. So there's just a lot of ways to use them. And I really appreciate the more sciencey. I geek out with the sciencey stuff, but you provided a lot of value here with your expertise, and I really do appreciate that, Dr. Sarah.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. That's a beautiful story too. My niece grew up with oils too. She used to know which one that she liked, and yeah, it was beautiful to watch kids knowing what they need. And yes, they're also most of them are safe to use around pets too. So if people
Yes.
are worried about that, we don't hesitate to be spraying chemicals all around our house, and then we worry about a natural plant derived compound that we're putting in the air. So I'll just kind of say that and leave it there.
Yes. I think we're going to have you come back on, because there's a lot of things.
Sarah.
There's a lot of things that I think we could pull out and that would be very beneficial. So, where can our audience go to find you, learn more about you, connect with you, and look at your resources? It sounds like you have a lot of good information.
Yeah, they can go to my website. It's either dr.labisco.com, or I have a cool little thing where if you just type in break free medicine, I'll pop up. And I think you have my Instagram links, and I'm pretty active on Facebook too. I have a DIY recipe group on Facebook it's private, but ask and you can join us. And I usually post one educational content post and then one recipe a day on that group.
Awesome. Ooh, I'm going to go join.
Yay!
Oh, well, thank you, Dr. Sarah, and I appreciate you being a part of the summit. And everyone else, be sure you tune in tomorrow for the next great interview. Have a great day, everybody.
Sarah, thanks everybody.